Close your eyes and picture a pirate, a wooden leg, a tattered black flag, a parrot perched on one shoulder, and in one hand, a bottle of rum. Hollywood has turned rum into a joke. Captain Jack Sparrow stumbling across the Caribbean, desperately searching for another drink. But history tells a very different story. Rum wasn't simply the drink of pirates. It was their drinking water, their medicine, their paycheck, their celebration after victory, and eventually, one of the reasons so many of them died. This fiery drink wasn't created by master distillers. It was born by accident, made from industrial waste, produced through one of history's cruelest economic systems, and carried across oceans that shaped the modern world. To understand pirates, you first have to understand rum. Because behind every legendary captain, behind every naval battle, and behind every buried treasure was a barrel filled with one of history's most influential spirits. This is the story of rum. Rum didn't begin in a pirate tavern. It began on a plantation. In 1493, Christopher Columbus carried sugarcane across the Atlantic during his second voyage. The Caribbean's tropical climate proved perfect. Within a century, islands like Barbados, Jamaica, and Hispaniola had become vast sugar factories. Europe couldn't get enough sugar. It was called white gold. But every fortune created a problem. After sugar crystals were extracted, a thick, dark, sticky liquid remained behind. Molasses. To plantation owners, it was nothing more than useless waste. They dumped it into rivers, fed it to livestock, or simply threw it away. Until someone made a discovery that would change history. Mix molasses with water. Leave it under the Caribbean sun. Nature would do the rest. Wild yeast floating through the air began feeding on the sugar. The mixture bubbled, fermented, and transformed into alcohol. After distillation, it became something entirely new. The first batches were crude, harsh, violently strong. People called it Kill Devil. Others called it Rumbolian. Contemporary writers described it as a drink so fierce it burned all the way down. Yet what began as industrial waste soon became one of the most profitable products on Earth. And Barbados found itself at the center of an empire built on sugar, rum, and unimaginable human suffering. To us, water is the safest thing to drink. For a pirate, it could be the deadliest. Every voyage began with hundreds of wooden barrels filled with fresh water. But once the ships left port, the countdown began. Under the blazing Caribbean sun, stored water quickly became a living ecosystem. Algae spread across the surface. Bacteria multiplied in the warmth. The inside of the barrel slowly rotted. Within weeks, clean drinking water had become thick, green, and foul-smelling. Sailors had no refrigerators, no filters, no chlorine, no understanding of bacteria. They only knew one thing. If you drank bad water, you might never reach land again. Diseases like dysentery, typhoid, and severe dehydration could wipe out an entire crew long before they encountered an enemy ship. Rum solved a problem that science hadn't yet explained. Unlike water, rum didn't spoil. Its high alcohol content made it remarkably stable during long voyages. Pirates soon discovered something even more valuable. Mixing rum with contaminated water often made it safer to drink. Not perfectly safe, but far safer than drinking stagnant water alone. Most crews developed their own unwritten formula. 1 part rum, 3 or sometimes 4 parts water. Enough alcohol to reduce dangerous microbes. Enough water to keep everyone hydrated. The result wasn't simply a drink. It was survival. Every barrel of rum carried aboard a pirate ship represented something far more valuable than celebration. It represented another chance to make it home alive. When most people imagine pirate treasure, they picture chests overflowing with gold, silver coins, jewels, pearls. But for many pirate crews, the most valuable prize wasn't locked inside a chest. It was stacked inside a barrel. Rum. A ship carrying hundreds of barrels of rum could be worth just as much as one carrying precious metals. Because unlike gold, rum could be used immediately. It could buy food, repair ships, purchase gunpowder, bribe corrupt officials, or be traded for almost anything in the Caribbean. It became liquid currency. When pirates spotted a merchant vessel on the horizon, they weren't only searching for treasure. They wanted supplies, food, medicine, weapons, and especially liquor. A successful raid often ended not with counting coins, but with rolling heavy rum barrels onto the pirate ship. Yet rum held another kind of power, a social one. Life aboard the Royal Navy was built on strict hierarchy. Officers enjoyed larger cabins, better food, greater privileges. Even the daily alcohol ration was tightly controlled. Pirate ships operated differently. Captains were elected. Major decisions were often put to a vote. Loot was divided according to agreed shares. And when it came to rum, many crews believed every pirate deserved an equal portion. Not because piracy was civilized, far from it, but because equality created loyalty. Every sailor faced the same storms, the same cannon fire, the same risk of execution if captured. Sharing the rum reminded every man aboard that, for better or worse, they stood together. In a brutal world ruled by kings and empires, a pirate ship became one of the few places where status mattered less than survival. Rum wasn't the only drink that ruled the sea, but not all rum was created equal. If you served aboard a Royal Navy ship, your daily ration came in the form of grog. It wasn't designed to be enjoyable. It was designed to keep sailors alive and under control. The recipe was simple: rum, water, sometimes lime juice. The mixture stretched valuable supplies while reducing drunkenness during long voyages. Its creator was Admiral Edward Vernon. His sailors nicknamed him Old Grog because of the grogram cloak he constantly wore. Before long, the diluted drink inherited the same name, grog. Pirates had little interest in discipline. When they captured merchant vessels, they gained access to something far more luxurious: sugar, nutmeg, cinnamon, exotic spices worth fortunes across Europe. Instead of watering rum down, many pirate crews transformed it into a rich cocktail called bumbo. Rum, water, brown sugar, freshly grated nutmeg, sometimes cinnamon, sometimes other spices stolen from East India Company cargo. Every cup became a celebration of victory. Every sip reminded the crew that the wealth of empires now belonged to them. While naval officers carefully measured every ration, pirates toasted around overflowing bowls. The drink wasn't just sweeter. It represented freedom, defiance, and the spoils of the sea itself. Every barrel of rum carried another story, one that pirates rarely saw, and history should never ignore. The Caribbean sugar plantations that produced rum were powered by the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of enslaved Africans were forced across the Atlantic under unimaginable conditions. Their labor harvested the sugar. Their labor produced the molasses. And their labor fueled the distilleries that made rum one of the world's most valuable commodities. The trade formed a brutal triangle. Manufactured goods sailed from Europe to Africa. Enslaved people were transported to the Caribbean. Molasses and rum crossed back across the Atlantic. Every voyage generated enormous wealth at an unimaginable human cost. But rum carried another danger, one that pirates willingly embraced. Too much alcohol clouded judgment. Discipline disappeared. celebration often replaced vigilance. Legend tells us that before the final battle of Blackbeard, his crew had spent the previous night drinking. When Royal Navy Lieutenant Robert Maynard attacked, the pirates were exhausted, disorganized, and hopelessly outnumbered. Blackbeard fought fiercely, but he fell. With him, the golden age of piracy slowly came to an end. Yet rum remained at sea, long after pirates disappeared, long after wooden warships gave way to steel, long after sails gave way to steam. The Royal Navy continued issuing its famous daily rum ration. Generation after generation of sailors received the same tradition, until July 31st, 1970, known forever as Black Tot Day. For the final time, the rum ration was poured. A tradition stretching back more than 3 centuries quietly came to an end. Today, rum survives mostly as a symbol, a bottle on a shelf, a pirate in a movie, a tropical cocktail on a beach. But behind every glass lies a far more complicated history, a story of empire, exploration, slavery, survival, medicine, war, and piracy. Rum wasn't simply the drink of pirates. It was one of the drinks that helped shape the Atlantic world itself. History often remembers pirates for their treasure, but their greatest treasure wasn't always gold. Sometimes it came in a wooden barrel. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten stories that shaped our world.